It's me, Dr. Pema. I have seen your Walk for Peace journey from Texas to Washington, D.C. I missed the first week, but then I followed you all the way. I have a question in mind always that after having a good life in a physical world, in a materialistic world, you become a very good educator. You had a good education, and also you become an engineer, and you are working in Texas University. So my question is, what inspired you to become a monk, to renunciate all these things, and then what inspired you to start this Walk for Peace journey? Thank you.
Thank you. My life becoming a monk is quite challenge and fun, because when I was working after I graduated, and I worked for about 2 or 3 years, and then from there I have seen so many changes in my life, in my family, and the friends around. Working in the engineering field, I tend to get a lot more attention from people, and that is the reason why people always call my name for help. And the way I live is always fulfill people's needs. And so sometimes it overwhelms me when this side calling me, that side calling me, and things like that. And I work really hard during that time. But then I also have friends, even though that I don't go out a lot, but I also have friends. And sometimes we have close friends. But then when come to benefits, friends become something else. It's not truthful anymore. Friends will willing to step on us to climb higher. And so that questioned me, is this life, is this real, is this something that I want? And then certainly so many problems come to my family, my father, my mother, my brother and sister, and my niece and nephew, and the people around me. I see a lot of challenge, I see a lot of sufferings. And I question myself, is this the path that I really want to walk on, continue following my parents and my brother and sister? Or I want something else? I didn't have an answer at that time. When I didn't have an answer and I become stressful, I become anxiety, because that time I don't talk a lot. And then certainly one day in the heat, summer, under the hot sun, I drove myself, I took off from work, I drove myself to the Hung Dao Vipassana Bhavana Center, and I saw my teacher. He walked under the heat at 12 noon around outside. And I just walked behind him, following him for a while, and then he stopped, and then he turned back and asked me, what can I help you? Automatically I respond, I say, Master, can I ordain to become a temporary? And then he smiled and he said, yes, when? I say, give me 2 weeks to arrange my work. And then he asked me, are you going to shave your head or keep your hair? And I say, I want to shave it. And then 2 weeks later, after asking for permission from my parents, and I joined the monastery, and he shaved my head, and then I became his student. He taught me and given me a book, and then teach me how to recite Pali and things like that. And after for a while, I said I have to go back to work. And then when I went home and he called me, he said, how's your life at home? I say, I'm not happy. And he asked me, would I like to come back to the temple? I said, yes. But my parents wouldn't allow me. And so time after time I asked my parents, they allowed me to go back to the temple, stay there for a while, and then after that I decided to become a monk, because this is what I really want. I don't want to go back to the normal life anymore. I don't want to walk on that path. I want to walk on this path. But what reminded me was back then when I was still in Vietnam, when I was still young as a kid, when my parents and brothers went to work. And then I saw one of the venerable monks, a bhikkhu, wearing a red robe. My teacher, he always wear red robe. Now he just changed it today. And so he walked for arms around in front of my house. And by that time, I didn't know anything about Buddha temple, nothing. I didn't know anything about it. I just saw one of the monks walk for arms around, and he stood in front of my house, and I was wondering, who is he? What is he doing? And then I just ran in and grabbed a scoop of rice, and then I ran out, and then he opened the bowl, the lid, for me to pour the raw rice into his bowl. And then I rushed to go in to put away that can. And then I rushed to come out again to see him, but then he already gone. I didn't see him anymore, but that was the highway. It's only one way, but I didn't see him anymore. And so that image reminds me when I met with him, with my teachers right now. And for the ordination, that image keep on popping up in my head a lot. That is one in the many things that happened to my life led me to ordain to become a monk. And then after I became a monk, I made a vow that I will serve my teachers. Whatever that I can do, I will do everything for my teachers to have more time to practice and to teach the people with the Buddha teachings. And so I spent years at the temple doing all the work at the temple for him and for myself. And then he let me went to Myanmar to practice meditation. And then when I came back, and then I started to express my vow of building the Dhammaciriya project to preserve the Buddha teaching through Tipitaka in many different languages. And then I stuck myself there at the temple. I couldn't go back to Myanmar for meditation and for study. And then the COVID-19 by that time. When COVID-19 came, and then I seen so much sufferings, even more and more every single day. Our temple opened the door to serve the communities with food every week for 750 families, food every week like that for 2 years. And then during those times, so many suffering people, even signatures, they come to the temple and they cry and they talk, they seek for help, guidance. And then we also travel around to Uganda, Africa to do the disaster relief as well. While traveling, I see the same thing as suffering from the people. I tend to ask the question for myself, what can a Buddhist monk do to help? And that is when I decided to do some type of work in America to raise the awareness of peace, loving kindness and compassion to the people. And in order for us to have all that, we have to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness is what benefited me a lot. That is the reason why I started the Walk for Peace in America.
Venerable Pannakara Thero sir, before I salute to you, I salute to your teacher first, as has been the tradition of the Oriental people, and that too the tradition of Lord Buddha and others. So, saluting the great teacher, Venerable Sri Ratna Thero sir, and you and your all the friends who have come in this delegation. My simple submission is not in the form of direct question, but it is a submission, and I would like to get your observation whether my submission is valid or not. But there is no any contradiction whatsoever you have submitted. The only thing is that we, the present generation, we have accepted that we are in the era of disruption. And His Holiness also directed this institute to organize an international conference on the topic disruption, values, human values in the age of disruption. Antithetical to disruption is certainly naturality or orderliness, natural orderliness. And all along the preceding millennia, the people who were wise, or wiser or the wisest, they always strived for searching out the ways and means, philosophies and pedagogy of finding the peace. I am submitting through this paper, small paper. To me, this peace is an abbreviation of 5 letters. PEACE, practicing everlasting attainment of cosmic energy. And to attain that cosmic energy, we have to think along the nature to the extent of cosmos. That has been the real teaching. But in the age of disruption, we have forgotten walking. We also have passed the stage of running. Now we are in the era of either galloping or flying. So the speed of the mind and the legs of the human being are so oriented and choiced by the intellectuals or the educated persons towards technology, the root of which is technique, but virtues are being ignored. Hence, as you have walked and your teacher and others have walked, and such people of like-minded people are also walking. Would you like to recommend that we should think about walking instead of flying in the space? Because flying in the space will not leave the space to walk. So, I just draw your attention, as you have very beautifully submitted. There is a very popular report, what you have just referred to tangentially. The report prepared by UNESCO has the exact title, Towards Reimagining Our Common Futures Together. And there is again a parallel term, Towards a New Social Contract. That's why, sir, you are the protagonist of recommending the philosophy of walking. And perhaps it is the most pertinent era when we have to at least discourage the galloping and space domination and indoctrination. Otherwise, human instincts, emotions, and wisdom will perish away. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir.